And while cars are getting more expensive, if a car is $20,000, are you going to spend $500 or $800 on an oil change? No. When a car's $400,000, $300,000, you're like, yeah, whatever, it's just part of owning an expensive car. So hair loss is a common problem with a lot of men, especially as you age. And one of the big things that happens when you lose your hair is your confidence starts to go down a little bit because you know you're not looking and feeling the best you can. That's where today's video sponsor Keeps is here to help you solve hair loss and at least address the problem to have you looking your best, feeling your best, and being confident. Most guys start experiencing hair loss by the time they're 35. That's very young, and it's not a process that reverses itself. Now, would they like to keep their hair or regrow hair? Absolutely. And that's where Keeps is going to come in, and they're going to remove the hurdles that prevent most guys from treating the condition. Who likes the process of going to the doctor's office, the pharmacy, and standing in line for everything? Nobody. That's why Keeps, you can get good quality expert care without ever visiting the doctor's office or a pharmacy. All Keeps treatment plans are delivered straight to your door for about half the cost of a traditional pharmacy. Keeps are going to help you select the right products and treatments for your specific condition and hair goals, so you can create a routine that works for you, because products that you don't use are pretty much worthless. Easily subscribe to Keeps and get refill reminders so you'll never run low on the products you need to take care of your hair. Well, hair loss stops with Keeps. To get a special offer, visit keeps.com/SSR. I put a link right below in the description. That's KEEPS.com/SSR. I put a link right below in the description. What's going on, everybody? Rob Ferrari here, and we're going to talk about my 458 and what an oil change would cost. Now, I did a video 7 years ago on the cost of a 360 Ferrari oil change, and it just highlights how time affects how much something costs. The Ferrari oil change is famous for and infamous for many reasons. A lot of people used to go brag that it's $2,000 to get your oil changed, when in fact it's not, right? 10 quarts of oil, it's a filter, and labor. That's it, and a couple O-rings. But what most people don't realize is that when a Ferrari's in a dealership for service, there's always something else that comes up. I got my oil change before we went on adventure drives with this thing. We took it down to Nashville. I tend to change my oil, because I have so many cars, once a year on everything, right? Because I don't really drive more than 5,000 miles a year. Instead of trying to keep track of all the cars and oil changes and all the service intervals, I just say at the beginning of the year I changed the oil and everything, and this one was due. So before the trip I had the oil changed, and I went up to the dealership, got a filter because I was last minute like I am with everything. Got it, brought it down, it was 50 bucks for the filter. And next thing you know, I get the bill and I'm like, huh, it was 500 bucks in labor. And I was like, oh, whatever. And I finally got to looking at it. It highlights the bigger issue, and the bigger issue is that the labor rates have gone up. Right? And that's going to affect everything across the board. When I say I got caught by the Ferrari oil change, it's not that the oil change has significantly gotten more expensive over the last 7 years. The oil for this car, I use 040. I use Mobil 1 synthetic. I've never seen a Ferrari fail for using the wrong oil. I know a lot of manufacturers recommend, Corvette used to always say you have to use Mobil 1. It doesn't matter. They didn't build the car around a specific oil. You put Shell in it, doesn't change it. You put Valvoline in it, doesn't change it. As long as you're using the correct weight. So you don't have to buy the Shell Helix, whatever the $17 a quart oil is. The Mobil 1 synthetic for this car on AutoZone is $37 per 5-quart jug. So this takes 10 quarts. That's $72 in oil. I was charged, I guess, by the quart, and it's by the quart, it's $10.95 online. They charged me $12.95. So be it. If the cost of oil was an extra $50, not a big deal. The labor for the oil change was 1 hour at $150 an hour, and that's not what got me. It's the labor to change the screws underneath the oil, the pan in the back. So the diffuser in the back has to come off to access your 3 oil ports, right? You have one for the dry sump and 2 drains for the engine. Each has its own O-ring. It's a very, very easy process once you get to do it, to get the oil changed on this thing. It's an hour of labor, but you can't do the oil change in a Ferrari at one of the like drive-through oil change places, because underneath on both sides of this, you have the under tray, and to get the under tray off, you can't access it from underneath the standing slot underneath. So, you know, if you ever go to a Jiffy Lube or something like that, they've got the drive-on tray, and the guy goes underground and he's under your car. That gives him access to the drain plug in the center of the car. You don't really get that with a Ferrari because you have to take the under tray off to access it. So you really need a proper lift to get this thing up in the air to do an oil change. To get a proper lift, you have to go to a mechanic. To go to a mechanic costs now anywhere between $150 to $175 for a cheap independent guy, which is significantly higher than it was 7 years ago when it was probably around $100 to $125. Why do they charge more money? Because it's not like the technicians are driving around in Lamborghinis or anything anytime soon. The dealers are through the roof. Dealer labor rates for exotic cars in cities, $300, $350 an hour. Now think about that. $300 to $350 an hour for dealer labor rates, but the mechanics don't now get paid $150 an hour. So they're still getting the $40, $50, $30 to $50 an hour, whatever they're getting for a mechanic labor rate, but that raises the cost of everything. Now you bring your car to a dealer for 1 hour of labor for your oil change is $350 plus the oil. You're at $550 just to do an oil change on the car. Now I've got my receipt here highlighting what happens when you get your Ferrari oil changed. And if you look here, it's got the replace oil and filter, $150 for the labor. That's 1 hour of labor. Then you have the customer supplied oil filter, which was $50. The oil they charged me $134 for, and then windshield washer fluid. So they charged me $280, $250 just for the oil change. That puts me at $330 for the oil change versus the $220 that it was 7 years ago. And then that's where you get hit for the extra hour of labor for securing the bottom cover, replace missing screws. So my under tray obviously had some missing screws, and I was like, wait a second. The last time this car was touched was here at this shop, and they were doing the steering rack, but they didn't take the back off. I went to the video. So it was just from being at the dealership for the inspection after the PPI that I guess the screws fell out on. Not all the screws went back in, but they charged me for 11 screws at $2 a screw for $21.45 plus $150 in labor to put the screws in. That brought it up another $170, totaling $484.03. And that is what a Ferrari oil change is. It's the unexpected stuff that they come up with, and the fact that the labor rates are then so high makes an oil change anywhere from $550 at the dealership up to $800 or $1,000 without even really doing much. We're just saying, excuse me, sir, when we were putting this back together, we noticed this was missing. That was a little extra labor, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So $550, I got the oil changed, and this car is good to go for the season. As soon as I get this windshield replaced, get this wheel taken care of. This wheel here, I'm making an attempt to make a claim against the state for this wheel just because they're annoying me and they don't fix the road properly ever. So they said, oh yeah, you can make a claim on our website. And I was like, I think I will do that. So I'm making a claim for them to replace my bent wheel because they said they can't fix my wheel, which is a problem. And I'm going to see how that goes. So I'll keep you in the loop. You know, I feel like it always happens the same way. It's got to be reported 3 times or something like that, and it has to not be fixed. I'm banking on the fact that this section of road has been crap for years. And they come and throw half-ass fixes on it, and it's never really fixed. It just becomes a hole again inside 3 days. So whether they keep repairing it or repairing it or repairing it, that whole section of road has to get replaced. And the only way to highlight that is to throw stuff at them and hope that somebody's like, look, just repave that thing and we don't have to worry about this anymore. We'll see what happens. Rob Ferretti living that Ferrari life, spending the $500 in the oil change where it should have been a little bit less. What happens? What is preventing somebody or myself from doing the oil change? Pretty much I didn't feel like putting it up on a lift, which I don't have the 4-post lift, the 2-post lift to get it up there. But the oil change itself is relatively easy. The filter you're going to get from Ferrari. Everything else, it's just time and effort. And like, I don't change the oil on anything I have. So I'm not going to pretend I'm going to do it, but it does make owning these cars more expensive in the future when you start thinking about labor costs. I mean, this is just an oil change, 1 hour of labor. Think about a job on this car that was, or even a steering rack replacement, that was just say 12 hours, just say 10 hours for ease of use. That job used to be 10 hours at $125 an hour. That's $1,250 in labor plus a steering rack. Now you're looking at it as $3,500 in labor plus a steering rack. In the future, when they're at $400, $450 an hour, it gets really expensive. And these cars, the parts pricing, even if it remains constant, the labor rates on exotic cars is starting to get a little nutty, and that's a larger problem. I guess if there was a justification to it, I would feel more comfortable with it. It's the same dealerships, same technicians, but the technicians aren't making any more. It's not the cost of labor is going up. They're just charging more because they know people are going to pay it. Rob Ferrari. I want to say living the dream, not really living the dream, more so venting about the cost of an oil change and why Ferrari oil changes are as expensive as they are, or they become folklore, and keeping you in the loop. I mean, every 5 or 8 years, I'll do an update on it, and you're going to go back and be like, holy crap, look at that. Oil change used to be $220. Now it's $800 for an oil change. And the short answer is it shouldn't really cost significantly more than oil, and $100 is a really easy job. But as long as labor rates keep skyrocketing, there's nothing to keep that in check. And while cars are getting more expensive, if a car is $20,000, are you going to spend $500 or $800 on an oil change? No. When a car's $400,000, $300,000, you're like, yeah, whatever, it's just part of owning an expensive car. So as cars go up in value, it's easier for people to stomach bigger labor rates because they have something that's more expensive. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Rob Ferrari, thank you for watching, and we'll get this thing cracking as soon as we get that done and that crack gone.